this lockdown is going to end. This difficult period with the coronavirus is just absolutely ravaging this world is going to end. But whether our faith ends with it depends completely on us. Whether you are able to practice and appreciate the sacraments depends completely on you. And right now, being denied access to the sacraments, that is the normal part. I dare say that that's the ordinary thing. I dare say that that is how it's supposed to be. But the fact that we have a parish so close to us, the fact that we are able to access communion and confession so often and so easily is extraordinary, but we're just not appreciating that because we have it so much. I've been discussing with a number of my friends about the fact that we aren't able to go to Mass, the fact that we aren't just able to go and pray in the church or just witness adoration. One of my very close friends is just struggling because she can't physically be there in adoration. So she's doing adoration via YouTube, which is still super awesome. And if you have that option, do it. She's missing out just physically being there. She's missing out just physically being able to look at the Lord and be like, Lord, you are right here. I am adoring you physically and literally in front of me, not digitally. It's very difficult for me too, because these are things that I'm struggling with. The lack of being able to physically be intimate with God face to face is something that I'm struggling with. The question came out like, why is God letting this happen? Why is God like putting the whole world on pause? Why is the church now on pause? Why is our faith almost on a pause, on a virtual intermission? And I don't have an answer. I don't have the perfect answer that many of you may be looking for, but what I do have is this hope, this reminder of how incredible it is that we actually get to participate in our faith. How incredible it is that we actually have this physical aspect of our faith where we are blessed enough to go to church. Because of the availability of the sacraments to us, because of the availability of our faith in whatever way that's going to manifest to you, we've almost started to take it for granted. It's like weird that we don't get Mass. Mass has become so ordinary for us that it's extraordinary that we don't get Mass. And if we aren't getting Mass, we're like, we're failing God, or we're being bad Catholics. But we forget the extraordinary reality, which is that we do get to go to Mass. Most of the Christian churches around the world it's been a much easier transition for them because they've taken their ministry virtual. They've run their services online. It's obviously they're not in their community, but it's doable. It's much more comfortable for them than it is for us because of the fact that we need that substance and that spiritual form. We need to be able to receive the Lord. And that is not something that we can physically do anymore. And because of this, I've kind of started to appreciate that we started making Mass ordinary. To go to Mass is an ordinary thing for us in general. To go to Mass is something that we expect. It's like a habit. It's a ritual almost. We've lost the appreciation for the extraordinary miracle that's happening in front of us. Not even Mass. Appreciate the sacraments. We can't do sacraments like via the phone. Because there needs to be a substance of a person there. I don't know the theology behind it officially, but I do know that the reason God becomes God in the consecration of the Eucharist, and the reason that we are forgiven in the performance of the sacraments of confession, is because the priest is standing in persona Christi, in the person of Christ. And the person of Christ is there right in front of us, present and physical. However, the person of Christ is not going to be the same thing as if I were to celebrate the Mass for you right now. I'm not in front of you, I'm virtually in front of you. This lack of that physical in persona Christi is so important for us. But that doesn't mean that we can just give up, or that we should just give up, or that we should just kind of like resign ourselves to the fact that we're stuck in limbo until Mass and confession and the sacraments start again. That's not what it's about. The best thing right now is to look back at the history of our church and our forefathers to find inspiration on what we should do. The early church wasn't able to celebrate. The early church was persecuted and they were targeted and attacked for practicing their faith of celebrating Mass, so they had to take it underground. They didn't get to go to Mass all the time. To go to Mass was a super special event that was celebrated, they dreamed of, they really longed for. They didn't get to go to confession often, so when they went to confession, it was incredibly special, I've almost personally lost that for myself. I don't know about you. A good example of maintaining the faith in a period of being denied access to sacraments and to Catholic teaching and to physical presence is also the Japanese church. In the 1500s, St. Francis Xavier, as well as a couple of other priests and missionaries, went to Japan, and they started spreading the church to great effect. I think in about 2-3 years, they converted 100,000 Christians. I am not certain about the timeline exactly, but the Japanese emperor decided that this was a threat to national security. So they immediately banned Christianity and started persecuting the church in Japan. The church immediately went underground. Every priest, every missionary was either killed or kicked out of the country. They had to flee for their lives. The church was essentially just crushed, as much as the secular world could crush the church. So the church effectively ceased to exist as an institution in Japan for almost 250 years. 250 years later, when foreigners were allowed back into Japan on a more permanent basis, Christian missionaries returned. And to their shock and horror, they discovered that the church that was supposed to have been crushed just went underground. The church was taught from generation to generation, family member to family member. People were converted without there being a single sacrament performed in that country for 250 years. The faith and the dedication and the struggle and their fight for their religion and their love for God is just mind-blowing. Pope Paul IX, when he discovered about the church growing underground in Japan, was like, this is one of the greatest miracles I've ever witnessed. We're not in that situation right now. We still get to practice our faith openly and proudly, but we don't have access to the sacraments. While that is terrible, and while that is personally hitting me very hard, and I'm sure it's the same thing for many of you, that is not the end of our faith. That is just the beginning of a potential miracle. This is just the beginning of a potential rebirth in our church if we were to take advantage of this wonderful situation. Another story of like this wonderful example of hope and faith. I don't know who it was that told me the story. It's either a priest or he's currently in seminary. He was in the seminary in Rome with a young Chinese man who belonged to a Catholic family in a place where practicing Catholicism is illegal. And anyone that was caught practicing Catholicism would be arrested. I don't know the exact consequences, but I definitely know that the church was being persecuted. And this man entered the seminary because his father was the sacristan for their parish community. They didn't have a physical parish. They had a priest that had to live underground, that could only celebrate the sacraments underground. And he couldn't be caught with the sacred effects. So he couldn't be caught with the chalice or the paten or the hosts or the wine, because if he was, he would be immediately killed. So what the community did was they gave these effects to the sacristan to keep. And then when there was a mass that was called, when there was a mass that was being celebrated underground, they would all gather and the sacristan would bring all of these sacred items to help perform the mass. So he was given the responsibility of basically supporting the community in one of the most dangerous positions, because if he was caught in this, he would have been either arrested or killed. And that man's faith, that sacristan's faith, that family's faith was able to provide for their whole community. Them practicing their religion and just holding those sacred effects gave inspiration to the whole community. This lockdown is going to end. This difficult period with the coronavirus is just absolutely ravaging this world is going to end. But whether our faith ends with it depends completely on us. Whether you are able to practice and appreciate the sacraments depends completely on you. And right now, being denied access to the sacraments, being denied access to this wonderful, wonderful presence of God in persona Christi, guys, I dare say that is the normal part. I dare say that that's the ordinary thing. I dare say that is how it's supposed to be. But the fact that we have a parish so close to us, the fact that we are able to access communion and confession so often and so easily is extraordinary, but we're just not appreciating that because we have it so much. for generations to come, for definitely for me, I'm going to be preaching this difficulty. I'm going to be talking about how the time where I wasn't able to go to Mass, the time where I wasn't able to go to confession, the time when I wasn't able to practice in community, to see the joy of Christ in the people in my parish, to see the friendship and the fellowship that we have in that fraternity of faith and that community. We don't get that now, and I can't wait to be able to tell people what you have now is special. You just don't know it because it is so ordinary. We need to do a very big job of like, Lord, I didn't really appreciate that. Thank you. Every day when I do daily Mass digitally and Father is holding up the Eucharist and the consecration, and I just want to reach out, but obviously if I reached out, I'd break my TV. And I'm like, oh, God, I know I can't receive you now. Help me to appreciate you more when I do get to receive you. That's maybe the hope. That's maybe what's going on right now. I don't know when God's going to end this lockdown. I don't know when God's going to end this whole crisis. But I do know that when this all ends, I am definitely going to appreciate Jesus in persona Christi a lot more in our priest. The person I was talking to, the person that was really struggling about not being able to go to confession and not being able to sit in adoration physically with the Lord, she said, never again am I going to miss a daily Mass because I just want to sleep 10 more minutes. Stay strong, stay faithful, stay hopeful. I'm praying for you. It's very difficult, but I am praying for you. My name is Marcojohnmanzella. I am a Catholic and I'm proud of it. I hope that you are too. Ciao.